Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another G Crypto video. And in today's video here on the G Crypto channel, we're talking about, you guessed it once again, Gods Unchained, and more specifically, the top 3 decks in my arsenal that have won me the most matches in the game. Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome to the video. But before we get started and get into the meat, the substance, the creme de la creme of this particular video, if you could do me a favor, go on down, give us a like. I mean, or not, I can't tell you how to live your life, but if you could do that, that would help us out tremendously. I love doing this content here on this channel. I love talking about this game because I enjoy playing it. And if you want to see more content related to this, related to NFT gaming as a whole, be sure to do the things that I just asked you to do. Do it! Alright guys, so Gods Unchained is an awesome NFT card game. I've been playing a ton of it. I've done a bunch of videos on it. You can find those all over the place out here on the channel. And a great option as far as NFT games go that are available right now and that you can earn real money with right freaking now. They've also, their coin has gone up over the past couple of weeks. I mean, their playership has gone up, I think fucking 15, 20x since I started back in January, I think it was. So with Gods Unchained, there's a few different things at play, but one of the most important things, or one of the best times to play, is over the weekend, because Gods Unchained runs an event called Weekend Ranked. Now, Weekend Ranked, what it allows you to do is you go in and you play, matches against other players, but the key is that during Weekend Ranked, the number of wins that you accumulate during that time gives you rewards, and that includes like the Gods token, which is the native currency, the native token of the game, which is worth a good amount from what I recall. I'll put the price as of the filming of this video somewhere here, but you can get Gods token, and you can also get packs, meaning expansion packs, like 4 cards, and those are awesome for obvious reasons. You are able to get them, and basically the way that it works is starting Friday, I think at 5 a.m. until Monday at 5 a.m. or something like that, you can play the game, and during that time, your wins are tracked. Now, whatever rank you go into the event with is the one that your sort of rewards are based off of. It used to be that that wasn't the case, and so it was incentivizing people to basically lose a bunch of matches during the week to rank down, and then on the weekend they'd play at lower ranks and win a lot because they had awesome fucking decks. So recently they made some changes that basically disincentivize that by making it such that the rewards are tiered based on what rank you are going into the weekend. So if you're like Mythic, which is the highest rank, you get awesome rewards the more wins you get. So they've recently fixed that, which is awesome, but basically that's how it works. You go in, you play weekend rank matches, and depending on how many wins you get out of your first 25 matches, you are able to get those awesome rewards. So obviously, the more you win, the better your rewards are because you get more packs. It doesn't necessarily translate to as many Gods tokens, I think, but the packs are personally what me and a lot of other people are really after. So so your incentive is to win. And with that comes strategy, right? And so what I wanted to talk about today are my top 3 decks that I've won the most with and that are doing the best for me during those weekend ranked matches. In addition to talking about the overall decks, I also wanted to talk about the top 3 cards in each of those decks, just as sort of a primer on some types of cards to look with, because these top 3 cards also play into sort of the overall strategy that I've found that works really well for me and for other people who are just better at it than me, who beat me and beat me really good. So I'll talk a little bit about the strategy with each individual deck, as well as these cards that I think you should look for that are really, really helpful when making or using a deck of this kind. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in with deck number 1, which is my Nature deck. Now, the Nature decks I see a lot of over Weekend Ranked. They're so powerful for good reason. Nature decks do a lot of regen, a lot of summoning, and like basically getting multiple creatures out on the field very, very quickly. And they're just overall really awesome. So first up on my list of best cards is the Blazing Talisman. So I'm going to jump into my thing here so that I can kind of show you. But I have 2 Nature decks. I have Nature Amazon, and then I have my Nature Regen. And the Nature Regen is the one that I've been playing a lot more with recently. But the first card that I have is right here, and that is the Blazing Talisman. Now, Blazing Talisman says it's 2 mana cost, 0/1 card, 0 attack, 1 durability, and it's a relic. But what it does is after an enemy creature attacks your god, you give it burn +1, which stacks. And then when a creature with burn dies, you give your creatures, not just your wild creatures, but all of your creatures +1 regen. Now again, nature doubles down on regen. I mean, even here you can see my Black Jaguar confused regen 1. So many creatures that come in the nature decks give you regen +1. So in order to sort of double down on that, this Blazing Talisman, especially if you can get it out early, is awesome, because burn +1 means a lot of those low level, low health early creatures are going to die quickly, like 1 or 2 rounds, and then that gives your creatures that are on the field regen as they die. So it's awesome card, very, very cheap to put out. It's 2 mana cost, and it's kind of hard to get rid of relics because you have to have a very specific card to remove durability from relics. So very good card, definitely recommend getting it out early, and that's an awesome strategy. Next up, we have the Tainted Treant. Now the Tainted Treant is a 5 mana cost card, it's right here, but it also has regen +1, notice theme here, and at the end of your turn, you add a random nature card to your hand. Now this is not a random nature card that you have in your deck, it's a random nature card. And what I've found with some of these like random, add this random X card to your deck, whether it's magic, nature, whatever, they're awesome. Like, I've gotten some kick-ass cards. I mean, not always, but a lot of times you get some bitchin' cards that you don't normally have access to with something like this. In addition, it's a great, creature. It's got 2 attack, 4 defense, which is pretty good, or 4 health, I guess I should say, and regen +1. And like I said, you can stack that with some of the other things that are here in this deck, but adding an extra card at the end of your turn gives you 2 cards per turn. That's double what your opponent is gonna have. And the more cards you have, the more options you have, the more tactics you can go to, and it's just overall better. So this is a fantastic card. Highly recommend you get one. I got at least one in both decks. Next up, we have one of the cards that comes out all the time and I see constantly, and that is this Bladefly card. Now this Bladefly is awesome. 4 mana cost, 2/2, but you summon 2 others just like it when it hits the field, which is bananas, because now you have, for the cost of 4 mana, you have 3 creatures on the field, and they're all wild creatures, which means they stack really well with something like this, which is this Wildfire card, where you deal 1 damage to each of your opponent's creatures, and you give +1/+1 and regen +1 to all of your creatures. So now imagine, right? You set up early, you got your Black Jaguar, maybe your Marshwalker, maybe one other random wild creature, right? You get your Blazing Talisman going. Some low health creature attacks your god, +1 burn. They die. Now everything has regen +2. Then you get out your Bladefly for 4 mana cost. You've got a bunch of creatures on board. Something else attacks your fucking god, dies. You got regen +2, +3 on some different creatures, right? And then you drop this Wildfire card, you do 1 damage to all your opponents. Now some of your creatures have regen +3 or +4. They got +1/+1. It gets out of hand, right? And this is, I've seen this strategy beat me so many times because it's a good one. So Bladefly, awesome card. Definitely recommend you get it in your decks, and that kind of wraps it up for nature. But like I said, overall kind of impressions or overall final thoughts, Bladefly, Blazing Talisman, and Tainted Treant, some of the best 3 cards that I've had that I have in my possession. There are other better cards, but these are the cards that I have and that do really well for me. Next up on my list, we have War. Now War, our decks are awesome. They're very aggro. They're about basically getting as many creatures as you can out on the field, pumping up their strength, and killing your enemy's god as quickly as humanly possible. So my deck here that I have is called Aggro, for good reason. And some of the best cards that I have in this deck, I mean, first up, you see this card all the time. If you've ever played Gods Unchained for like more than a week, you've seen this card, and it is the Boil Blood Outlaw. As you can see, I've got 2 of them here. They're awesome. After this creature attacks, give it +1 strength. That's bananas, especially if you get it out early. You can get a frontline creature and protect it for a little bit. You can very quickly get this creature up to 4, 5, 6 strength before maybe it hits, it gets hit with if you're playing a magic deck, they can kill it quickly, so be careful. But my point is that this card's awesome. You can stack buffs on it, like Fury here, give Blitz and +1 strength, so right out of the gate, it's got it's a 3/2 creature, and it's 1 mana cost, so you can have a bunch of them in your deck and just, yeah, buff the shit out of them. So great card. You've seen it a lot, and it's because it's good. Next up on my war deck, we have an awesome card that I just recently got a hold of a couple, and they are awesome, and that is this Thundercaller. 3 mana cost, 3/3 card, fucking fantastic, but this is the kicker. At the end of your turn, if you were frenzied, which you almost always are with a war deck, give your strongest Viking +1/+1. Now, the Boil Blood Outlaw, Viking. Acts like so many of these cards are Vikings, right? The Boil Blood Outlaw is a Viking. Your, where is she? The Vanguard Axewoman, Viking. And also your Thundercaller is a Viking, which means half the time they're just buffing themselves. This gets out of hand so fast. I think I've gotten this guy up to like +12, like 12/12, because he just stayed alive. Fortunately, I set it up so that I had some good frontline creatures in the way, and it was awesome. These are fantastic. Next up on the list of war cards, we have none other than Overproof Brew. This card is fucking bananas. So deal 1 damage to each creature. Awesome. Maybe not so good for your creatures, obviously, but deal 1 to enemy creatures as well. But then you give +2 strength and protected to each of your creatures. This card is fucking bananas, and it is a core strategy of so many war decks because it's so good. You have 3-4 creatures maybe you got a Boil Blood Outlaw, maybe you got a Thundercaller out, a couple of other, randomized warriors or something like that, and you drop this on the field, it's almost game over because you got 4, maybe 5 creatures out, they all got protected, they get +2 strength, they're fucking terrorizing your enemies, your enemies' frontline creatures or what have you, because they all have protected, they can hit and not get hit. It's so good I got 2 of them. Let's put it that way. It's a core component of almost every war strategy deck, and that's because it's fucking awesome. So look out for this one. Definitely recommend having at least 1 or 2 of these in any war deck that you have if you can get your hands on one. Last up in my lineup of my top 3 decks, so we got Nature, we got War, and we've got Magic. Magic deck users are... they're good. It's one of the most frustrating things about Magic, playing against a Magic deck, is the amount of spells that they have. They can just deal damage to your creatures and kill them and get them off the board. And so with Magic, it's tricky because you're constantly trying to field enough creatures that they can't kill them all, which is hard. And so the Magic decks do really, really well. And mine is no exception to that rule. I do really well with this deck. But one of the most important cards in my strategy for this deck is none other than this guy, the All-Seeing Spire. So one of the cool things about the All-Seeing Spire is it is order 10. Order means that it's not a valid target for attacks and it can't attack itself, or it can't attack rather, but order 10, and at the start of your turn you foresee 1, which means you see the next card that's coming up in your deck, and because when you foresee, you have the option of either leaving it or shuffling it to the bottom of your deck. So you pick which card you get to draw next, and then at the end of your turn, you draw that card. So the amount of strategy that you can do, because you can, if it's early in the game and you got like an 8 mana cost card coming up, you're like, I can't, I don't need that. So you put it to the bottom of your deck and then you draw the next card or whatever. But also just getting more cards in your hand is such an important aspect, I feel like, of a winning strategy. The more cards you have, the more options you have, the more creatures you can field at once. It's just better. So this is a huge component of my strategy, and I really like it. Now, the other card that's very important to this strategy is this guy right here, my Oni Spell Sword. Now, this card doesn't look like much, but one of the cool things about it is it has ward. So as soon as you play it, it gets ward, which is actually really important, especially when you're playing like Nature or Magic decks, because Magic, that voids spells, right? Like incoming spell damage. So it's basically a one-time, don't get hit with a spell. And the kicker with this one is after you play a card, and not just once a turn, but anytime you play a card, the Oni Spell Sword gets +1 strength, and your creature with the lowest health gains ward as well. So this is a really handy card actually against other Magic deck users because it gives a bunch of creatures ward and they can't destroy your creatures with a bunch of magic spells. Also, just the fact that it's every time you play a card, I mean, you could play like 3 1 mana cost cards in a row or a bunch of magic spells, especially if you've got the All-Seeing Spire and you've got 10 cards in your hand, you can play a shitload of cards, low mana cost ones, kill everything on the field. That Oni Spell Sword's all of a sudden got +5 strength and wham, you're into it. So very important part of my strategy. The only thing I regret about this is that I fused it into 2, so now I only have 1 instead of 2 like I used to. And finally, one of my favorite cards that I have, and also one of the cards that I hate the most when it's not my deck, and that is Ratify. Ratify is fucking awesome. You just transform a creature into a 1/1 rat. Very simple, devastatingly effective. I mean, this will turn that 9 mana cost dragon that your opponent just fielded into a literal 1/1 rat. It's so good. It's so annoying when it's not you who's playing it, and it can turn a game-ending threat of a card into a non-threatening anything right away. It's huge, it's awesome. I've done it before to like shut down like the death decks have like a card that's like a Necropolis where you just summon a shitload of zombies all the time, which is fucking annoying. Turn it into a rat. The Treehouse of Agrodor, which is in the Nature decks, which lets you summon all kinds of shit at the end of your turns, turn it into a rat. The beauty of this is it doesn't care. It can do backline, it can do order because it's a spell, it's not a creature. So you can hit a creature with order, you can hit a creature that's backline, you can hit a creature that's frontline, you can hit anything, and it just turns it into a rat. awesome. I just got another one, actually. I think as a part of a reward I got in a pack earlier today. I'm throwing another one, I think, in here because I need to make space for it because it's so good. But that's really it. That kind of brings me into the end of the video. I mean, those are my top 3 decks, right? Nature, go with regen, go with summoning as many creatures as you possibly can, getting that regen up, buffing the shit out of them, and attacking as much as you can. With war, very similar. Buff them, give them protected as much as you can, maybe find an enduring shield, use that overproof brew, use those outlaws, those thunder callers, and just amp up that strength, go in on your opponent's god and just whittle them away as quickly as you possibly can. And finally with magic, just fucking spells for days, destroy everything on the field, and just whittle people away. Magic decks are long game, by the way. Like I've had more games go to 9 mana locks, unlock the whole wheel with Magic than I have with any other deck because it's kind of slow and it's a more patient player's game, but it's really, really fun. And getting creative with spells is awesome. But that's pretty much it, guys. Nature, War, and Magic. Those are my top 3 decks. I've won the most with those types of decks in the weekend ranked, which is really challenging because you get some good players playing. So hopefully this gave you some tips, some good ideas as to what kind of cards to put in your next deck, and hopefully you enjoyed it. If so, make sure to like it, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next video because I will be coming out with another one soon. That's pretty much it, guys. So thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to game it till you make it. Catch you in the next one, guys. Bye-bye.